Right, everybody, thanks for joining me once again for a quick rundown on why people are quitting the carnivore diet. Apparently, with some quick comments from me. Caveats, do your own research, do your own due diligence. Don't take anything I say here as advice from me to you. It's not. These are just my opinions. Educated ones. Anyway, here we go. Some of the problems that people say, the reasons why they quit carnivore. This is in some kind of order, 1 to 10 of least that should be taken seriously, up to most that should be taken seriously, maybe. Stick around till the end, then you'll know what's the most serious risks of the carnivore diet are, apparently. Here we go. Number 1, social and family pressures. It was just too hard to remain carnivore when all my family and friends are doing something different. Well, if that's going to be the case for you, this is not for you. In which case, neither is health or longevity, perhaps. Get some discipline. If all your friends jumped off a cliff, would you do that too? I know, it's an old adage, but whatever. Alright, so there we go. That's just nonsense. I couldn't be carnivore because of family pressures and social pressures. Oh, well, good. Maybe the budgie's having a birthday. Any excuse will do. Number 2. I either didn't or couldn't eat enough food on the carnivore diet because it was too satiating. Well, a lot of these people that say these sort of things didn't do carnivore correctly. Example, Amy Esther, who claims to have been on a lion diet for some time, although, well, she admitted several minutes into her video that in fact what she was eating, as well as meat, salt and water, was quite a bit of almond butter with chocolate chips. Alright? So that's not quite right, is it? Mark Morris, another one, who talked about being unable to eat enough food, for example. Number 3, boredom. Oh, this diet's too restrictive. Well, I'll tell you what's restrictive. Living a life that's foreshortened in terms of its duration and in terms of the health span during that duration, which is foreshortened. That's pretty restrictive. Look, if your only source of interest and variance in your life is being able to eat a whole bunch of other things other than food, non-food items, I really seriously think you should rethink your lives. Listen, the reason that we eat is so that we might live. It is not the other way around. Okay? Number 4. A number of people have claimed to have quit the carnivore diet in part, or indeed wholly, due to lab values. Okay, number 1. Most lab values will not give you any useful information prognostically. Most lab values that are routinely taken are not a cause for concern, and you shouldn't make a decision on your diet based purely on what some lab results may or may not have said. Okay? Examples. Lily Kane. The lovely Lily Kane. One of the reasons that she claims to have quit carnivore was because her thyroid numbers were not entirely optimal. Well, how did you feel, Lily? We know she didn't feel great, and there's a number of reasons for that, which we'll get to as well, I think, perhaps during this short video. A lot of people say the blood glucose drifts up. The HbA1c drifts up on carnivore. Yes, we know. That's normal. We expect it. It's not pathological. The damage that's done to a person due to having elevated blood glucose is generally done when the blood glucose is very high indeed. Acutely. Most people on a non-sensible, non-carnivore diet eat vastly too many carbohydrates. They mix that with fats as well, which causes a real problem with the Randall cycle, and they get a blood glucose line that goes like this. They'll get an average through the middle, but that average line through the middle is not where the damage is done. The damage is done up here, in the peaks. Okay? So there's no evidence whatsoever anywhere in the literature that an A1C value, even approaching 6, as a 100% carnivore, is remotely problematic, because those people do not have huge diversions away from the average blood glucose line. Their blood glucose is remarkably stable throughout the day, especially if they do it sensibly, the carnivore diet that is, by having one meal a day and not a huge number of meals, but we'll get back to that one as well. Another example, Sue from Beyond Carnivore Journal. Quit carnivore, she says, entirely because her LDL went up. Well, Sue, you didn't do your research. Okay, LDL is not the cause of heart disease or any other reason for concern unless your LDL is too low, in which case it is a cause for concern. Maybe people should do some research or talk to someone who knows what they're talking about before they make decisions about their diet based on lab numbers. Okay? I've covered LDL in I don't know how many videos on my channel. There's a whole playlist on it. Hours and hours and hours of actually scientifically based information there. Go and check that out if you want to. Or don't. Whatever. I'm just here to offer the information. All right. Number 5. Skin problems. Back to Lily Kane again. The lovely Lily. I think Lily's problems were, number 1, stress. Stress can absolutely affect your skin, its condition. A lot of people wear stress and distress on their skin, okay, rather than her diet necessarily entirely per se. Also, her allusion to the thyroid issues that she was claiming to maybe have been having on the basis of some lab results. Maybe that they came into play. Also, vitamin A could well have been an issue because it turns out that Lily had been influenced quite nefariously by a criminally incompetent, non-nutritionally trained individual by the name of Paul Saladino, who was a carnivore and who lost his mind and his discipline and his diet and his youth, it seems. But we'll get back to Paul later. So yes, vitamin A toxicity through taking in too much liver under the influence and suggestion of one Paul Saladino. And the other thing that Lily was doing that was really probably very problematic for her skin indeed was canned sardines. Lots of them. Well, why is that? Things like toxic overburdens of all sorts of primary and secondary oxidation products of oils that you'll find in those fish cans, like aldehydes. They can really cause havoc. Hey, Paul, on your skin. Yeah, okay. And what else? Oh, yes, the fact that the tinned sardines are tinned in cans with plastic liners. Plastic that leaches all sorts of products that we don't want in our bodies into those sardines. So, there we go. Skin problems tend to disappear on a sensible carnivore diet rather than get worse or indeed appear in the first place. Okay? So, yeah, I don't think that one's a particularly valid one either. Number 6, eye twitching, muscle twitching, especially at night time, that kind of stuff. Lily Kane mentioned that one as well. Again, could electrolytes have been a problem because of an insufficiency of daily insulin response? Because she was, it seems, eating a number of small meals a day instead of one big one. Insufficient protein probably. Was probably in a chronic systemic inflammatory overburden situation due to some of the poor choices that she was making, including taking advice from one Paul Saladino. So there was that. Well, while we're talking about Paul, Paul obviously quit his diet because he was talking about electrolyte problems and muscle twitching problems. Well, it seems like while Paul was eating a lot of food, it wasn't enough for him because he was very, very active, perhaps. Also, there's evidence that he was eating multiple, much, much smaller meals every day instead of one big one, which he should have been doing for his insulin. Also, Paul was in bed, shall we say, at least business-wise, with the very, very credible Liver King, who turned out to be not at all natty. Who knew? Well, I did. Anyone with a set of eyeballs knew. Anyway, they had a business model. They wanted to sell lots and lots of freeze-dried liver and promote liver as a superfood, so they did that. Well, that's a mistake. Both vitamin A toxicity is a very real possibility, as well as the very real possibility of a toxic situation in terms of the vast amounts of copper and the imbalance of the copper versus zinc and other things that you will find in the liver. Liver is not a superfood. You ought not to be eating tons and tons of liver. So yeah, Paul's problems were not caused by a deficiency of carbohydrates and fruit and honey, because there's no such animal as that. Human beings don't require a single gram of carbohydrate exogenously in their diets, not one ever. It seems like it was more a psychological thing with Paul than anything else. Something that he should actually be probably focusing on, because he's a psychiatrist and not a nutritionist. Perhaps you should go and do that, Paul. Anyway, there's that. Number 7, weight gain or weight loss on the carnivore diet, which is caused either often by the intake of some or indeed too much dairy for the individual. That's very much how long's a piece of string and your mileage will vary type situation. Absolutely, yes it is. But for everybody there is a limit as to how much dairy you should take in before you can expect to have some issues around weight gain. In the form of fat, I'm talking about. Fat gain is what we really mean here. And if someone is having a fat gain problem on the carnivore diet, that's absolutely the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to suggest to them, if they are taking in any dairy, well, let's get that gone and see if that fixes your problem. If not, the next one will be, well, are you eating too much protein? Which leads to our other problem, which is too much protein can lead to, indeed, rabbit starvation if there's not enough fat with it. Dear oh dear. And that seems to have been the problem that Tristan Lee was suffering, it seems. He couldn't get his body fat above 8%. Well, he was a huge, muscular, hypertrophy athlete who was doing his diet entirely wrong. Mostly because he was being influenced by absolute imbeciles. Like Mike Imbecile from periodized Renaissance periodization, whatever it's called. That imbecile. Yeah, him. And others that he was listening to that didn't know what they were talking about whatsoever. So there we go. Rabbit starvation or dairy for weight gain and weight loss. Yeah, most common causes of that one probably. Number 8, back to Tristan Lee again. Sleep problems, sleep disturbances, cortisol problems. Well, rabbit starvation. Okay. He himself claimed that he was eating vastly too much protein. He actually even gave us a number in his video. And then also when he was listing out the cons, actual and reality of the carnivore diet, he kind of said, I'm struggling. Can't think of one. I did it wrong. Yes, you did, Tristan. Number 9, thyroid problems. We've talked about them a bit already, mostly down to vitamin A and insulin insufficiency, pretty much. Mark Morris, there's an example, I think. Lily Kane was in that boat, as well as not really a Dr. Paul Salad I don't know. There we go. Number 10, microbiome issues. Can be quite serious, yeah. Here's the way to deal with 90-something% of all the microbiome issues that a person on a carnivore diet might expect to experience. Do not hammer over and change your diet from anything to anything else overnight. Always do a transition over a number of weeks, slowly, steadily, and sensibly. Thank you very much. That takes care of that problem. So there's the top 10 completely invalid, worthless, vacuous arguments against the carnivore diet, reasons why people say they quit. Basically, they lack discipline, they did it wrong, they were psychologically affected, they listened to the wrong characters. There are actually no real concerns with the carnivore diet that I can see whatsoever. A couple of concluding remarks. Regarding the Tristan Lee thing, he seemed to have had multiple issues around his diet and health as a result of what he was doing, including listening to imbeciles. He said he couldn't eat sufficient food. The satiety of the carnivore diet was such that he couldn't get enough in. That sounds like overtraining, which a lot of these athletes do. He suggested that dairy might have been a problem for him. I suggested it probably was. He was eating a lot of fatty fish. That's not a good idea. Psychology definitely comes into it, absolutely. As I was talking about with the, being influenced by imbeciles and being bored and not being able to discipline yourself to stick to a sensible program of eating. Failing to understand that the reason that we eat is so that we can live and it's not the other way around, that kind of stuff. I want to talk about Joe Rogan while we're at it. Exercise performance, they say. Exercise performance is badly affected by not consuming carbohydrates, is one of the reasons that some of these clowns give for giving up the carnivore diet. Well, the problem is they're not properly fat adapted. Athletes who do not consume any exogenous carbohydrates, who are properly adapted to fat oxidation, do not suffer in terms of their performance. Yes, when you change your diet, especially if you do it too suddenly, your exercise performance will tank. There will be a trough in your performance for a period of time. And that period of time can be significant. 6 months, perhaps. Okay, you need to be prepared for that. You need to do it properly, do a proper transition, understand that there will be a trough in your performance, but it will come back as good or better than it was before on a carnivore diet. All of these studies that talk about the absolute need for carbohydrates in the diet for exercise performance, none of them, not one of them, assesses people who are properly adapted to a carnivore diet. It's just nonsense. Sorry about that, for those of you who have bought into that rubbish. Let's talk about James Blunt for a minute, who apparently got scurvy on a carnivore diet, so it said. Well, turns out his carnivore diet was very, very sensible indeed. It was chicken and mayonnaise. That's all. For several months. And he went to the doctor because he had bleeding gums. And the doctor said, oh, you might have scurvy. Did they test him for scurvy? No. Did they establish that he got scurvy? No. He's eating nothing but chicken and mayonnaise for several months as a prank during your university days. A good idea? No, James. Stick to singing. You do that quite well. Keep doing that. Good work. Okay, let's also talk about 50 Plus Beauty, a woman who gave up the carnivore diet. She actually made a video saying why she was giving up the carnivore diet, listing a number of these ridiculous things that we've already dealt with in our list today. But then, it got worse, didn't it? Yes, because she had a stroke. Poor lady. Strokes are terrible. I know, my sister had one very recently, very serious one. So I'm not making light of the situation at all. However, to then turn around and say, I did a carnivore diet for X number of months, quit that diet, and then had a stroke, and blame that stroke on that X number of months of eating a carnivore diet. Utterly vacuous, ridiculous, irresponsible, stupid, crazy, not worth taking seriously, not for a second. Right, there you go. All the reasons why people claim to quit the carnivore diet. Are any of them valid? No, they all did it wrong. Just do it properly, okay? The muscle meat of ruminant animals, plus the associated fat, 80% of your intakes. Plus or minus dairy, plus or minus eggs, salt and water, rinse and repeat. You don't need to supplement with anything nutritionally. Job's a good one. No problems. I know, I've been doing it for a decade and a bit. Others have too. Some of them for multiple decades. Hey, Rick. All right. Thanks for joining me. Join me next time when I'll give you a list of 10 other things, because that's what we're doing right now. We're listing things. See you then. Ciao for now.